Bud and I moved from Wisconsin, where our daughter, her husband, and their 2 daughters live, to Florida last year. It was not my choice. I mean, who wants to move away from family, right? But it was the logical thing to do. So I said yes and started packing up our huge home. Our huge home on Lake Michigan, going to a swamp. Okay, I'm not carrying any bitterness anymore. So anyway, here I am, getting rid of stuff, cleaning out, packing things, doing so much work. And my friends would come over to help, and they'd say, "How are you doing?" And I'd always say, "I'll be happy when I'm finally settled in the new house and I have a schedule to see the grandkids," because that was going to be the worst of moving. So every time I would say, "I'll be happy when." And I realized that's what we do. I'll be happy when I graduate. I'll be happy when I finally get a job. I'll be happy after this wedding is over. I'll be happy after this child is born. I'll be happy when I'm finally settled. I'll be happy. We always think I'll be happy, but when I did the research, and let me tell you, when I start to wonder about something, I research it. When I did the research, I found out we should be happy right now. We all have beds to sleep in. Our lives, our freedom, the stuff that we have, we should be happy right now. But I used to think, well, here's one of the things that I learned. Thankfulness comes before happiness. I used to think first that somebody would give you something, a compliment, a smile, a gift, and then you'd be happy, and then you'd say thanks. That was the order I thought life was in. But this is telling me, no, you be thankful first, and then you're going to be happy. So I realized that we have things that are stuffed into our brain from the time we're small. Superstitions. A black cat is going to bring you back bad luck, right? I mean, we have superstitions, suppositions, assumptions. We've got comments from people coming into our brain all the time. And so many of them are negative instead of positive. And what I read is that we have to be positive now. We have to be thankful for what we have now, not be waiting for happiness to come. So here's what the research says. These are the words. You have to modify your habitual thought patterns. So I couldn't spell those, so I put change habits. So we have to think differently than what people try to get us to think. People try to get us to think in negatives. But we need to start to think in positives. And my dad used to say, he was a minister, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. Well, with this one, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. But let me give you just a little example of the way we react. I do permanent deletes from my inbox on my computer because I found out that if I don't and I just hit delete, then they go in this box, and then there are too many, and then something doesn't work, but I don't know what. So I do a permanent delete. If I'm done with the email, it's gone. But I keep a whole bunch of emails because I need a little bit of history. Some of them I mark as unread because maybe I'll go back and do something about that. Well, one day, I had 3 junk emails in a row. So I highlighted them, got the permanent delete, and my heart stopped. I looked at the computer. There were 2 emails left in my inbox. Can you imagine? 2? My heart started going again, but it was going very, very quickly. And I'm thinking, what did I do? I just deleted all of my inbox, all of my inbox. And so I'm looking around trying to find a way to get it back, and I can't find a way to get it back, and my breathing is fast, and I'm having a panic attack. And I emailed Dave, our son-in-law, who is the family computer guru, and I tell him what's happened and that I'm frantic and that we've got to do something about this. So while I'm waiting for him to email back, I start to do some other work, and then I come back and look. After 30 seconds, he hasn't responded. And so then I go and do a little bit more work, and I come back to the computer, and then I go and do a little bit more work, and I'm starting to notice that this huge weight is off my shoulders. All those emails that were sitting there that I should have gone through at some point, they're not there anymore. And by the time Dave emailed back, I was euphoric. That's the way, somehow we have to get through the things that we think are catastrophes and find the goodness in them. So, first piece of homework is right here. Did you think you were getting away without homework? Okay. Say thanks every hour. Be grateful for something. You don't even have to say it out loud. Some of those books tell you to write it down. Yeah, who has time for that? So you don't have to say it, just think it. Think of something that happened. Oh, I'm so glad my car started. I'm so glad I had my toenails painted for this conference. I'm so glad I have 2 legs and they work. I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be great. It has to be something you're thankful for. And then I found this, and I love this one. I don't know if you guys can see this, but replace I'm sorry with thank you. Every time you start to say I'm sorry, change it to thank you. I am one of the biggest screw-ups in the world. And when I have to write to somebody and say, oh, I'm sorry that I didn't do that all the way, I'm always rushing, aren't you? I don't know. It's my way. So then I have to write and say, I'm sorry, I should have gone over it one more time, I should have done this. And by the time I'm done saying it, I feel like this, and I know I'm a loser, right? I mean, we start to feel like losers when we say I'm sorry. Instead, when you start to say I'm so glad that you were able to fix that for me. I'm so happy that you have attention to detail that I don't have. We don't need to say I'm sorry as many times as we do, because instead we can say thank you, which brings happiness to us. So that's your second piece of homework. This is this. Remember this, whether you're a boy or a girl, you arrived on this earth with a joyful spirit. It's our human nature to be happy. That joyful spirit is still inside of us. It's just then people started saying, oh, you can't do that, and don't say those kinds of words, and now you have this responsibility, and now you have this responsibility. And eventually that joyful spirit gets smaller and smaller, and sometimes we can't even find it. So I'm trying to think, how do we get back to being that? I mean, kids, little kids, they are so pure, they are so perfect, they are so honest, it's painful sometimes, but how do we get back to finding this joyful spirit? So I'm trying to think of who could we emulate? What could we do that would get us back there? And this is all I could think of. Dogs. They are happy. And look at this dog. It's not saying, it doesn't have a sourpuss and say, I had cancer and had to have my leg amputated. I only have 3 legs. You better bring the food dish to me. I need some water now, too. Would you carry me outside so I could do my business? Otherwise, I'm going to have to do it right here. No. Cancer, amputation, nothing. That dog is happy. A joyful spirit. So then I'm just finding out more information, and what I find is the dog doesn't have an ego, and we do. The issue for many of us, the reason we're not happy and joyful and finding that joyful spirit all the time is because of ego. A car cuts in front of you, and instead of saying, hey, that was my spot, I was here first, instead you can say, oh, I'm so glad that I have such good reaction time. Otherwise, I would spend the rest of the day filling out police reports and insurance forms. How lucky we are to be able to accommodate other people, even when they're being jerks, okay? So anyway, it's the ego, I think, that's the problem. Ann and I, when we travel to different conferences, one of us rents the car and drives it each time, different one. So we were in Indianapolis in February, and it was my turn to rent the car and drive. So Ann got out her GPS, but would she put it down? No. She had to keep it with her. And we're driving along, and before the GPS would say, your exit is in 2 miles, Ann would be telling me, it's 2 miles until you exit, you better start to pull over and get over in the other lane. And the GPS then tells me it's 2 miles. And Ann is starting to say, Ruth, you've got to pull over. It's 2 miles. You're going to have to get over there. And you're driving so fast, that's going to go pretty fast. If you were driving slower, we'd be safer. And I know there's a car in the way, and I'm not going to change lanes yet. And I pretty much know how long it takes to drive 2 miles. And I've been doing this for years. And so I had a little flare. Actually, it was a big explosion. And so I really let her have it, and her GPS at the same time. So later on, I'm thinking, because it's not a normal thing for me to get really upset like that. So I'm thinking, what is it? And you know, you can talk about fatigue, you can talk about stress, you can talk about all those things. But truly, it was my ego expecting her to know that I was capable of doing this, that she did not have to help me. I knew how to do it all by myself. So our ego can get us into some tremendous problems. It's very strong. And there are some people, and you know who I'm talking about, the haters. Their ego gets going so much that they hate things. And what they talk about to you is just vile. It's horrible words coming out of their mouth. And even if you believe their general concept of what they're talking about, you can't get into that. That's going to make you sick. That's not going to be healthy for you. And it doesn't matter. You need to take a step away and start to think how thankful you are that you aren't like that. This is my favorite slide. Can you read it? It says, you work with those people every day. You work with that whiny dog, don't you? Do you want? Okay, there are a lot of cameras going like this. Do you know what? When Angie sends all the Dropbox with all the handouts from this conference, I'll have her put this PowerPoint in for you. And then you'll have this one. You need to take care of yourself. The problem is, that's the theory. The theory is really fine. How do you implement it? How, when those horrible things, and you know there are going to be some really tough things happening in your life, if they haven't already. How can you get over it? What are the steps? And this is what I decided. I took 3 of the I Chi postures from the Body-Mind Visualization Healing Program. And I think that these 3 are the best for us to try to stay on top of all those things that happen to us. So the first one is accepting. In accepting in I Chi, we open our arms up and accept everything the world has to give us. The good things, that's fine, but also the challenges. Accepting says that, and you won't be able to accept right away. When it's a really hard thing, it's going to take a while to finally accept. The end of this relationship, the end of a job, the loss of a person, those kinds of things are so devastating. It takes a while for accepting to occur, but as long as you are fighting it, as long as you are resisting that this could have happened, you don't have any energy to move forward. You're using all of your energy to fight what has happened. So accepting tells us you've got to accept it. This has happened. And now you've got to use your energy to move forward instead of fighting. And hopefully, well, you guys are the ones who will move forward in a positive way versus a negative way. So the second I Chi is accepting with grace. Accepting with grace in I Chi is harder to do physically, but this is harder to do metaphysically. You have to accept that horrible thing that's happened and be grateful. You have to find gratitude in the midst of that. It is not easy. That's why it's so easy to say all the words, but it's so hard to implement this. Ann and I had two brothers. We lost our oldest brother 2 years ago. And when I got off the phone, the day I found out he died, I was angry, and I was really sad, and I was a lot of emotions. Mostly, I was angry because we were supposed to go there in 3 days to visit, and he didn't wait for us. A typical boy. So, I was also angry that his wife didn't get him into the doctor sooner. I was angry that he smoked his whole life. I was angry that I didn't tell on him in high school. Like it would have made a difference. It wouldn't have. But I was finding all these things to be angry about. And finally, I had so much in me that I could hardly function. And I thought, I've got to find a way to be more positive. And I thought of accepting with grace. And I am so grateful for cancer care. I am so grateful for hospice. And the best thing, I couldn't be happier. I had a big brother for 69 years. You can't beat that. He taught me things. We fought. We did things together. He was mean sometimes, but he taught me to be married. I don't know. We learn lessons, and there's gratitude in the midst of sorrow. So accepting with grace says once you get past it and you can accept it, then go on and find the things that you're grateful for. The third of the I Chi is called rounding. In I Chi, our spine is always straight so the energy flows. But in rounding, we actually round our spine. Rounding, to me, is the sweetest of all the lessons here. Rounding says, oh yeah, each one of us is going to go through some terrible things. Each one of us is going to be betrayed by someone we love, or we're going to have financial losses, or we're going to have personal losses or career losses. Each one of us is going to get smacked down. And for a while, we will be sick, maybe physically, maybe mentally, maybe emotionally. But as you accept and accept with grace, you eventually learn the lesson you have to learn. What's the lesson? You're going to know. You're going to know what lesson you were supposed to get from this. And then I Chi says, instead of keeping that pain and that anguish and that sadness and that anger inside of your being, you round your shoulders and let it roll right off your back, letting go. Those are the things that I think can help you to move forward from pain. But I've saved the best one for last, and it's you. Because you are the givers of the world, you find joy in other people finding joy, right? But what really makes you happy? Because that's the thing that you need to always be thinking about. Because your thoughts create your actions, which create your future. So, and it's not the same thing as the person sitting next to you. We have friends who love the roller coaster. I vomit. So you know that we all there are different things that each one of us loves, right? So you have to dig because other people know what they like. The takers know what they like. They like for you to wait on them. They're going to sit there with that amputation and say, bring me some food. No, you've got to find what feeds your soul. And that's the thing you have to have going in your mind. You don't have to do it. We talked the other day, travel. Oh, I'm there. Travel, but it costs money. So all I have to do is think about it. All I have to do is watch some television about some travel trips. And it brings me that joy. So it's the thoughts. It's what's in your brain. And that's going to make us happy. Our thoughts create our actions create our future. So I'm summing up your homework right now. Oh, wait. This is my meme for this. You didn't laugh. Oh. You have to find out about you. You know about other people. You have to find out about you. And then, here's your homework review. Remember, thankful every hour. Say thank you, not I'm sorry. And then it's accepting with grace, and rounding. And finally, the most important one again is you. Find out what brings you joy. But always keep working in the water, because there's no angry way to say bubbles. Thank you.